It is time to get out of pocket. I'm your host, Michael Davis, joined by the guy who hosts the Two Pointers podcast, Trevor Everette, with two T's, by the way, just so you guys are very clear on that. And we also have the guy from QuickHits, podcast _ Smitty, was rewatching QuickHits from this past week. And you guys, if you want to have your question answered on QuickHits this upcoming week, you need to slide in that guy's DMs, respectfully, of course, and give him your questions so he can answer them on his episode this upcoming Wednesday. But guys, we got some news scrolling at the bottom of the screen. One of those being UNC quarterback Max Johnson, the son of Brad Johnson, exiting Thursday's game with a hip injury, as it looked. And now it has just been broke that Max Johnson will miss the remainder of the season with a broken right leg suffered in last night's UNC game versus Minnesota. The Tar Heels won 19-17, and you can see plenty more news scrolling in. Shannon, you're the UNC guy. What do you make of the Tar Heels losing their starting quarterback week one? And do you have confidence in this team with Connor Harrell moving forward?
I was looking forward to seeing Max play. They showing a good picture of his father in the stands. His father, Brad Johnson, who won the Super Bowl in the NFL with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that great defense. He was a part of that team. I was looking forward to him playing. I mean, that was one of the reasons why he went to this squad. He looked like he had a chance to start. But the quarterback spot was neck and neck between him and Connor. So I really think that Connor can still play. I want to see UNC play some very competitive football this year. But you know how it is. Injuries are part of the game. But yet you also have to have that next man up mentality, which is something that Matt Brown instills in his players. So I'm looking forward to it still. It's still early in the year. We can develop some things, but get well soon, Max.
Yeah, and that was Shannon's take. And Trevor, you took the UNC quarterback from last year, Drake Mays, on the Patriots right now. Do you think the UNC team has much hope without their starting quarterback?
It was actually going to be my point later about when we brought up NC State. I was going to talk about which team should be more worried. I'm like, I don't know, a team that Minnesota might win 5 games this year and lose the starting quarterback for Carolina. Like, that's a tough look. Look, my thing with the whole quarterback thing with Mac Brown is like, why be that cryptic for that long? And then like it ends up being like this quote unquote battle. Don't let any coordinators talk to the media. Like there was a lot of things that I was just like, it's not adding up. And then for it to be this big Max Johnson story, obviously that clouds a lot of it because we want to see, the best players out there on the floor. But I don't know. I was just really confused by the whole ordeal. And then it sucks to see your quarterback go down. There's not really a take I have for it. I mean, I never want to see anybody get hurt regardless of an allegiance or an affiliate. So.
Yeah, it's absolutely tough. Max saying he loves the scroll. We're doing something a little bit different. And if you watched my dad and I's episode for Dad and the Boys, it dropped a couple hours on delay today, but we did something new there too. So if you haven't seen it yet, I beg you, implore you to check that out as well. Now that was breaking news. We have other news scrolling at the bottom. Things that we're not going to cover necessarily on the show today. You can drop your comments though, but I'm usually right when I say anything on this show. I'm usually not out of pocket, and now I get to say maybe I spoke a little bit out of turn for the last month, and somebody's had to endure this for quite some time. Brandon Aiyuk, the wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, re-signed with the team, 4-year, $120 million. He's not getting traded to Pittsburgh or Trevor's team, New England, or any other team out there. Aiyuk is a San Francisco 49er. And on air, I promise, Shannon, I apologize for what we put you through this last month.
Talk that talk, Shannon. Talk that talk.
Well, I just wanted to go ahead and say on air that I'm going to be very modest. I'm going to be very demure. No, I'm not.
What's that word? Oh, my God.
What I tell you? What did I tell you? What did I tell everybody? What did I tell y'all? Cleveland? Really? Deshaun Watson can't finish the season, and that's going to be your quarterback? Really? Trevor, no disrespect, because this does not concern you. It concerns that man over there.
I agree. Hey, the three of us are on the pod when we talked about it. I agreed with you.
Gave up $32 million
to win.
That's when I learned it wasn't about money. That should have told everybody it was not about money, not just about money. It was about the fact of contending. And there's no way you can tell me that New England was going to contend in the AFC East this year. Again, Trevor, no disrespect. But the fact of the matter is, why would you go to a squad where your quarterback is not intact yet? And San Francisco has that. And Pittsburgh? Oh, I'm sorry. Who's playing quarterback for Pittsburgh this year? We don't know. Because Russ might not begin the season or end the season. And Justin Fields is still stuck in Chicago in the mind frame. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? With an offense number one in big plays? And you're going to leave that for some money? I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, I'm going to leave you alone with the CeeDee Lamb thing. I'm going to leave you alone about that. Because I knew CeeDee Lamb was going back. He'd be a fool to leave Dallas. Just like Brandon Aiyuk would be a fool to leave San Francisco. And go out there and get ate up in other divisions where your offensive coach is a guru at getting you open. So I want to go ahead and say to you, Michael Davis, thank you very much for making me look smart. Thank you very much for making me look like a guru. Thank you very much.
I'll say this, though. The only thing, I'm glad it laid out the way it did with taking less money, because ultimately I want to see more guys that care about winning Super Bowls out there, because I really do feel like the Devontae Adams of the world, not that he didn't want to, but that was the example Shannon gave, and it was great. My only pushback would just be, let's not pretend like Brock Purdy is 4 tiers ahead of the other guys that you just mentioned. That's the thing. I'm not here to tell you Brock Purdy's a bad quarterback. I'm not, because I think that conversation last year went too far in a lot of places. A lot of people talked about that. And I think Brock Purdy showed that he's a really good quarterback. I don't think that that's any discredit here. I'm kind of riding the fence still, because it's still early. When you're Mr. Irrelevant, you have to uphill battle there. The fact that he's even in this position, the weapons obviously help that. And I think it would have been really interesting to see without Aiyuk. Just, one less weapon there, because Debo's not the deep threat, right? Debo's more of the, short yardage, your slant guy, I think they play him at running back half the time, for crying out loud. And, obviously you have McCaffrey. We all know that. Kittle's an incredible blocking tight end, as well as a pass catcher whenever he just has those big breakout moments where they scheme for him. My point is it's not like he went to this. If we're talking about the comparison to other teams, it was really all about money. And it was originally, until I think he kind of sat back and realized, regardless of the Brock Purdy situation, I don't know how much he took into account of that, but he's still the best quarterback out of that group. So really, if it's less about money, then that's fine. You're contending, and I'll trust the coaching staff at that point. And people can sit here and pile on about they've made the Super Bowl a couple times. There are franchises that haven't even made the Super Bowl. And the fact that they have Brock Purdy, this deep of a team, hopefully a healthy Christian McCaffrey. Sorry, Panthers fans, but I mean, you want that guy out on the field. And at the end of the day, the Niners have been there more times than most teams can even dream of. And even if they don't get it done, people like Shannon are going to be upset, but none of us are going to sit here and, I'm not, I can't speak for anybody else. I'm going to tell you that they're a successful franchise in the last 10 years, because they're making the Super Bowl. They're making these deep runs, whether they win it or not. Eventually it's kind of like the James Harden thing, right? You make it as far as you're going to make it. And then eventually there's a ceiling to you. Maybe there is a ceiling to them. If they make the NFC championship game this year again, or make the Super Bowl again and don't win, then we'll start maybe having those conversations. But at least they're putting themselves in a position, and it starts with having Aiyuk back out there.
Yes, exactly. And the Brock Purdy thing, I've been hearing that a lot too. All I can say is there were 7 quarterbacks picked in front of that man, and 3 of them got traded in that draft class, which that draft class was malarkey anyway from the get-go. Let's just go ahead and say it, because you got a 7th-round guy outperforming everybody. So, yeah, your draft class was garbage. Let's just be real. But with that being said, yeah, they surrounded him with the right guys. It's called building a squad. It's called building a team. And that's what a lot of people don't get. And that's why I kind of look at that whole thing. Even if Brock Purdy falls on his face, this year or the next year, Brock Purdy did very, very well with what he had. He done very, very well with how he was as a quarterback. And no one even saw him coming, which was one thing. And the fact that he was the last pick and having this success here, yeah, okay. I get the whole team has something to do with it, but no one says that about Tua. And look at Tua's squad. No one says that about Tua. I don't hear nothing about Tua Tagovailoa having a squad that's around him that's amazing. But yet you want to give something to Brock Purdy. And Tua was drafted 5 rounds above him. 5 rounds.
I will say,
and he went to a better speed.
I will say, as the proud owner of Brock Purdy and Tua Tagovailoa on my fantasy team this year, I will say, see, Trevor's making the faces. I don't disrespect
Fantasy's
those
different.
two guys.
Fantasy's different though. Like that's like what you have. Like pick like 19. Like good lord. I mean, I guess. Oh, it was an auction draft. That's right. Because that's right. It was an auction draft. I did watch a lot of that. So, I'm so used to picking that. That was my text to Michael. Unfortunately, when the 12th spot filled up, I was like, I'm just not auction. It ain't for me. Sorry, dog. I thought it was really funny the idea of like it's an opportunistic thing too for Purdy. I know that's not we don't want to go down that rabbit hole probably, but to Shannon's point, that was a really weird quarterback year. Let's go with the situations that went ahead of him. Kenny Pickett went to, albeit franchise, that's been really stable under Tomlin. It's not the perfect situation for being real. It's not. Desmond Ridder, I'll just leave that one alone. Malik Willis, not even on that team anymore. Matt Corral, Bailey Zappi, a guy that played more than Purdy at one point.
No.
Sam Howell was probably until Purdy. Sam Howell was the best quarterback of that drive class, as crazy as that sounds.
Also not on the same team.
Chris Oladokun. I didn't even realize he went 7th round Steelers. And then Brock Purdy. Yeah. So, I mean, opportunistically, he went to the best possible place out of all those guys. And that matters. And that's kind of my point about the whole Aiyuk contract.
And people falling behind, off the depth chart, to injury or what have you, as well.
I left out Skylar Thompson, by the way. Sorry. Skylar Thompson, Dolphins.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Jimmy
right.
G got hurt and Trey Lance got hurt. And you can have Trey Lance. 5 picks in the preseason game. Huh?
Shannon, that's not on the itinerary.
That's more than one. That's more than one a quarter, dog. That's crazy.
Would he do that in the San Francisco uniform? He didn't.
Oh. To be fair, he was playing with guys who aren't even on the team anymore. That's fair. Also,
second string defenses too. To be fair,
Also, we need to have a stat that takes the interceptions away from the quarterback. Because
when they're actually not on the quarterback. Yes.
Yeah. Like not all interceptions are on the quarterback. Like a lot of it is like if it's ripped out of a receiver's hands, like one of those were like
if it's tipped, if it's this, I get it. Like
I get it. Yeah. And if wishes and butts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas now, wouldn't we? Thank you.
Well, it is sports Christmas.
We're not going to talk.
Yes, it is. Let's go. Football's back, baby.
Football's
Coming from the basketball
back.
guy, by the way. Like whatever, bro.
Well, don't worry, Trevor. We got a basketball segment for you.
Oh, thank God. No, just kidding.
Stephen Curry.
That's enough. I'm good.
Stephen Curry is the second guy in the Bay Area to sign an extension this week. He added a year for $62 million onto his current deal, staying a Warrior for the 26-27 NBA season. So this pretty much affirms my opinion for so long. Curry's not going to the Hornets as much as people love that pipe dream. Curry is retiring a Golden State Warrior. I just want to know, was this too much money? Because I don't know if spending 60 plus on a guy who at that point in his career is going to be a little more up there in age. Like he's already 36. Okay. So 3 years from now, 3 years from now, he's going to be 38, 39. Can you build a team contending in the playoffs 2-3 years from now on the back of a 38, 39-year-old Stephen Curry? Now, people have tried to do it to LeBron. That's even failed. There's several times the Lakers miss the playoffs or get eliminated early. I love Steph Curry. He is one of the best basketball players of my generation. He's definitely one of the most influential players.
Top 10 all time.
Top 10 all time. Sometimes I would love to take him over LeBron in certain debates. But I don't know, guys. 60 plus, like we saw Kobe towards the end of his career, like getting all this money, and the Lakers weren't able to build a team around him. Trevor,
They weren't trying to. That's the whole point, which is why I know exactly where you're going with this. 1 year, 62 million. They should have given him 1 year, 62 trillion. It doesn't matter. It's Steph Curry. Like, it's Steph Curry. It's a top 10 player of all time. They're clearly at a point where they weren't contending for a title as soon as Bob Myers walked out of the door. When Bob Myers walked out of the door to do TV 3 years ago, that's when they stopped contending for a title. It had nothing to do with this team and the way it was constructed, or Steph, or $62 million or nothing. If we're being honest, this is just the screw you guys that give me the Clay money is all this is. This is really all this is. It's just screw you guys, give me the Clay money. And that's exactly what it is. It's the leftover residual from what should have been in Claymon Green. That's fun. Klay Thompson or Draymond Green's pocket, which it is, 4-year 120 for Draymond Green. Yeah, that's an all-timer. Clip that one. But
hey, it was enough to wake Shannon up over there.
No, he should be asleep, because guess what? The more eventful part of this is the fact that he is a Warrior for life. That's the fact. That's the whole purpose of this contract. And mind you, crazier things have happened. Like Tony Parker played a year in Charlotte after San Antonio, for crying out loud. So Steph still could, and I want them. I want him to. I've said that for years, and I want anybody around here to be excited about that. I think it's really unique for when guys to do something like that. It doesn't happen as often as you actually think. And so, cool, keep him around for one of the most storied franchises ever, who he helped put them back in that position, because they were this, okay, we won some titles, and, Wilt's at Chet Day, we won some titles. I think they won in 76 or 5, one of those years. And obviously they've had some incredible players, run TMC, all that stuff. But here we are now with they're the most storied franchise in the NBA in the last 15 years. They just are. And they should pay him every ounce and penny of that money, and deservingly so. I don't really have a point to it, and I'm glad we're talking about it, because he deserves to be talked about, because he's a top 10 player all time. I literally just moved him into the top 10 like recently.
Really?
About a month before the Olympics, yeah.
Wow. All right, Shannon, once you wake up over there from your beauty sleep, I know you needed a little extra this week.
Oh,
there you are. Hey, you didn't miss much. You didn't miss much. I was just, hyping you up and wanted to ask you about your thoughts on the Warriors giving Curry this money.
I just wanted to know, were you done? Are you done? Because why in the world would you not pay that man every bit of money that you got? Oh, I'm sorry. When was the last Warriors squad that won a championship in the NBA? Exactly. We weren't born. Everyone, none of us were born. Here, none of us three were born when they won the championship last. The closest Warriors squad was in that 2000s when they were playing street ball with BD and those guys there. They were like the closest, and that wasn't really that much. And the Western Conference was tough at that time, as it still is. Why in the world would you not pay that man that money right there? Why would you not do that? And you ought to be, and if they didn't get this deal done, Golden State ought to be ashamed of themselves. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. That fan base would walk, and if I were that fan base, I'd walk right with everybody else if they didn't pay that man that money. I don't care if he gets you to another championship ever again. The fact that he got you there and got you championships, notoriety, changed the game of basketball, and he was wearing your uniform, really? And you're not gonna pay that man? Get out of here. They were more than. They should have paid him more. It doesn't matter. They should have just looked and said, how much do you think you want? You go ahead and tell us what you want.
Sign the check, dog. That's what I would have said. I'd be like, exactly. Just sign the check, bro.
What, exactly. I mean, for real, there's no reason why they can't sit around here and tell that man to name his price after what he's done for that organization and how well he's held them down and how loyal he was, and the fact that they were still writing him off when he got drafted on draft day and he exceeded expectations. Let alone
I would say so. Yeah, I love that.
Man, sign what you want. Tell us what you want. Tell us what you want.
10% cap increase every year, typically on average. Like, you got to think about that. So this 62, let's just say 10% of 62 goes down. Boom, boom, boom. In 5 years, that cap is like it's an irrelevant number at that point. And mind you, he'll be 37 and 25, 26, which means he'll be 38 the year after. Play one full year in Charlotte at 39. Like, he could play till he's 40.
Shot.
He can play till he's 40. He can, because of modern medicine and because of the fact that all he has to do is shoot and pass the ball. Now, teams are going to expose him, and that's fine. And it depends on how he wants to look at legacy. I would lean right now that he's a guy that really does probably deep down care about his legacy a little bit. And playing for 20 years in this era for the same franchise.
Go ahead, Monday. Do it.
Greatest, just retire there. That's okay.
Greatest shooter of all time.
I don't know who Lee Majors is.
Mac bringing up the Lee Majors. That's the second time he's dropped that today. Just FYI on the $60 man. Here's my issue with, I mean, I get it. Like, as a fan, I never want, Dwayne Wade to go off and, play for Chicago or play for Cleveland. Like, as a Cowboys fan.
By the way, I forgot he played in Cleveland, but like 90% of the time, I forgot
he played in Chicago, and that's my squad.
I mean, as a Cowboys fan, I hated when DeMarcus Ware went to Denver. Like, I understood it. I don't like that Tyron Smith is with the New York Jets. Okay. In terms of like my personal emotions, feelings, I don't love
Steph Curry.
9 close.
Okay.
Close.
I get it. I'm with you. I just want to make it abundantly clear. A guy like this getting this contract is completely different from
9 close.
Throw out a number for another guy.
DeMarcus Ware's a Hall of Famer, by the way.
That's awesome. He's not a top. He might not be a top 5 player in his position all time.
Exactly. Don't care. Nobody cares. Next.
But when it comes, Emmitt Smith played for the Cardinals at one point.
It sucks. I hate it. Yes.
Okay. As a fan, that sucks. Like, to see your guy,
Patrick
who was
Ewing,
a lifer,
played for Orlando,
played for another team.
Deion Sanders, prime time. Charles Haley.
He played for.
Deion bounced around
played for a couple of times.
Charles Haley. And
Michael Jordan, guys. Michael Jordan.
Yeah, Michael Jordan.
Yeah, the Wizards for crying out loud.
Bulls fan right here. Bulls fan. Yes, I cried. I cried, man.
The reason I bring that up is, yeah, we can look and say, hey, we can start idolizing Steph Curry, which, everything he's accomplished for Golden State, who was like mid before Curry really took over that team. Like, yeah, we can be like, hey, he deserves all the money in the world. Mac adding in there, Joe Montana to the Chiefs.
Yes.
Another 49er, go. But if you are looking at it from a business perspective, you can't give somebody so much money and more percentage of your cap space based on what they've done in the past. It's more about what you're going to do in the future. And if they really wanted to keep Curry around that extra year, wait mid-year through now. Okay? Like, see how it goes. Wait until the following year to see, okay, is Curry regressing? Is Curry actually getting better with just the IQ? That's my argument. That's my stance. Is like, if they had that championship mentality, like Trevor mentioned with Bob Myers, I don't know if Curry gets this deal right now.
He would get it regardless. That's where, like, we're looking at it in two different ways, and you have to remember that, like, very few teams and opportunities and players, for that matter, have a chance to do what Steph Curry's doing, right? Dirk in Dallas did not. Mark Cuban could not have cared less.
No,
that Dirk was doing what he was doing. Like they weren't contending with Dirk the last 5 years of his career, and they tried to build while Dirk was still there. And Dirk basically was like, "I'm just playing, 26 minutes a game or something at one point."
It
doesn't matter. Like, these guys have this opportunity, like a Steph Curry, like a Dirk, like a Kobe. Like, obviously LeBron, Jordan, like some of those guys, like that's different, right? The situations led them to where they were. But these guys were transcendent to the franchise they're in. They can still try to build, obviously, the contract value. They have to make better draft picks, right? Those are irrelevant. If they're going to be bad with Steph Curry, to kind of counter your point a little bit, like, why not, like, sit here and let him be paid and do what the opposite? The Lakers drafted decently well when Kobe was bad. Like, they had some guys there who started getting Russell and Randall and then eventually Ball. And then next thing you know, here we go. Like, they turned into Anthony Davis and they turned it into a championship, for crying out loud. Right. Mm-hmm. So you eventually phase that guy out. And why can't you just sit here and you retool around the draft and not go full blown rebuild? Because that's really hard to do now. Right. Quote unquote, tanking is not exactly easy anymore. So if you kind of can get the best of both worlds, to counter your point a little bit. Like, Steph Curry can get paid an ungodly amount of money, and if they draft well, which they haven't done, minus maybe Jonathan Kuminga or I'm probably leaving somebody out. They obviously drafted some great guys in the second round that have really panned out. Brandon Podziemski is a really good player as well. But you have to kid on those guys that are the next Steph Curry, the next this, the next that, which is obviously big aspirations. My point is, you got to get guys that are good, bring them in. They haven't done that lately, and paying him isn't going to prevent that from happening. Paying him $62 million is not preventing them from going out and drafting players. It's just not.
Not at all. And who wouldn't want to play with Steph Curry? I'm just here to tell you, who wouldn't want to play with that dude?
Every young point guard right now that is 16, 17, 18, or 19, if they get drafted by the Warriors, they're not going to complain a single ounce. And guess what? Those guys might even sign there, depending on, or trade there, or, roster free agents, whatever. Like some of those young guys that are on those second contracts that don't get those one from the original team, I'm going to go learn from Steph Curry. I'm going to go learn from one of the best developmental programs, if not the best in the entire NBA, and the Santa Cruz Warriors, and obviously their entire team at the high level of the NBA. They're one of the best developmental teams in the league, which is crazy because they aren't even bringing guys in to filter through that developmental system. They're developing guys that they have for the last 10, 15 years, and look what it got them. It got them 4 titles. Like, come on. And they got one, by the way, that I know Boston wasn't the better team. Well, it was the better team technically, but like Steph wins that. Steph won him the title. Like it just is what it is. Like nobody's arguing that. And without him, they wouldn't be here, which is why the contract's valuable. And
exactly. And Jordan Poole still ain't invited to the party, so it doesn't matter. So,
well, I mean, if you start looking at the party invites, you got Brandon Podziemski, you got Andrew Wiggins, you got a really old / suspended a third of the games, Draymond Green, Trace Jackson Davis, like.
That's what the front office to figure out. That's fine. That's what the front office to figure out.
Exactly.
It has nothing to do with Steph Curry. It doesn't.
They have to build the team. They are the ones that have to build the team, not Steph Curry.
I'm not faulting Steph Curry and taking the money. Just to be clear, I'm faulting the GM and the front office saying, "Hey, let's go ahead and give you this $60 billion for that year."
Hold on. So I really want to make sure we're on the same page about this. You're realistically telling me, right? And let me just make sure I got the name of the GM of the Warriors right, because obviously it was Bob Myers for so long. I get him confused with someone else all the time. And I just want to make sure you're abundantly clear saying that you are by the way, probably 3rd most valuable franchise in the NBA right now. Billions of dollars. So I think if it sold right now, it probably would sell whatever the buyer is willing to pay is obviously how that works. But they probably sell for $6 billion, right? Mike Dunleavy Jr. is the general manager, right? He took over after Bob Myers. So,
Duke, by the way,
even better. So you can actually tell me in the audience with a straight face that you would sit down there. I know you're not Bob Myers. I know you're not the guy that drafted him. I know all that, right? Let's keep that in mind. But you would tell me that you would sit down with Steph and his team and you would go, "We're not paying you. You can walk in free agency."
No, that's not what I'm
saying. So then what are you saying? $62 million. Pay him whatever. Like, okay, pay him 40. You're really gonna argue with a guy like in a meeting with Steph Curry and tell me that he's not worth $62 million?
You know what they tell you? They say, okay. That's what they do to you. That's exactly what they do. They say, okay. Well,
my issue is not giving Steph Curry money. My issue is giving it to him right now, not knowing what you'll need to do in 3 years from now, because you just added another year for $62 million, not knowing where the team is. If your whole point is to give Curry money versus, hey, let's see where we're at in 2-3 years time. And let's, actually try to build a championship contender. Then that's my point. I hope that's coming across well.
The contract, in hindsight of the way the cap works, the contract will be worth $49.6 million that final year. If the cap goes at 10% every year, which is a conservatively low number, that contract is substantially less than it was the day we're talking about it. So I get the timing of it all, but you realize that if you gave it to him, let's hypothetically say on your timeline, like you gave it to him in the final year, right? That's unrest with your best player in franchise history. That's unrest knowing that he doesn't know when he's going to get another contract, which is why Klay Thompson walked out the door and is playing for a contender in Dallas, by the way. Yep. They paid Green, which I still think is a crazy thing to pay Green over Thompson. I don't think you pay either of them and let them walk. That's cool. Whatever. Right. Or trade them. It doesn't matter, right? The point being is you're going to sit here and tell me you're going to take Steph Curry, again, top player of all time. You're going to take him to the final year of his contract. And then, by the way, if you want to do the math the forward way and tell me it's $62 million now, right? What's it going to be worth in a couple of years? I don't know. Let's times 62 by 20%. I don't know. It'd be worth freaking, $80 million at that point?
You still better than me.
So you're paying more money. Which kind of funny how it kind of rounds around the bases and gets back to Shannon and I going, oh my God, pay him $80 million. Who cares? Guess what? He got paid, which is kind of funny how that worked out. Anyway.
I mean,
I guess.
Do you think, be real with me, do you think a single Lakers fan shed a single tear when they paid Kobe 60 million. He went, well, now we can't build a contender with 38-year-old Kobe. Oh my God.
I know Lakers fans who said that. By
There's
the way, it wasn't you.
That's
it wasn't
fine.
you.
That's
it
fine.
wasn't you.
They're wrong. They're wrong.
In 8, that man would have went somewhere and ate y'all up if that would have happened.
He would have retired if we're being real. He would have walked out.
I don't care. It's still a fact of. And then people be looking back and saying, why did you do this? Like, it would still be an unanswered question. Why did you?
Bingo. The same argument, by the way, that people gave with Kobe, we're still talking about 10 years later because we're talking about Steph right now. It also shows with this front office that they're willing to pay their guys. That they're willing to take care of them. The Clay thing they can work out with free agents,
I was about to say,
whatever. But we're talking about Steph Curry here, right? You get a guy like Steph Curry in there again one day, like they did with Kobe, and like again, they paid Kobe, and then look at LeBron, look at AD. Those guys are getting contracts, they're getting huge extensions, and the Jeannie Bruss people can say, "Hey, we take care of our guys." That's been the whole Lakers thing. And I get that they didn't even get a meeting with Durant in 21. I totally understand. Or 2018, whatever year that was. Wow, time flies. But whatever year his free agency was, 2017, 18. And he didn't even get a meeting with them. And that's totally fine. Whatever. That was, in that period, to your point, where they weren't really able to rebuild. And KD could look around and go, maybe it's not a great roster because you just paid Kobe $60 million. I get it. But you have an opportunity to pay Steph Curry or not. That doesn't matter if it's this year or next 2 years from now when it's worth $82 million. You pay him. That's the whole argument about the timeline of like we're arguing in a circle about it. The timeline doesn't matter. You can't afford, no pun intended, to let this guy just like leave for nothing.
No way.
Or ruin the reputation of your front office and your tenure forever.
You talk about Jerry Krause 3.0 is what would happen there. Oh man, you wouldn't show your face again, and with all due respect, his widow would get booed at a Chicago Open or at a Chicago game, which would be freaking terrible. I would hate that for anybody because it doesn't matter. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. You've got probably one of the GOAT point guards that is in that conversation, whether anybody likes it or not, whether Magic Johnson likes it or not. He's in that conversation of GOAT.
He's the second best point guard ever. Just call it what it is.
It would have to be. If he's not in your top 5, forget about it. I don't want to even talk to you about basketball, period. If he's not in your top 5, you got to pay that man. There is no way. It's either you pay him or you pay him. Enough said.
I'm just making sure I write this down and I put this sticky note somewhere that on August 30th, I should probably put the year 2024.
Hey, by the way, the year
Trevor and Shannon thought the Curry contract was a great idea.
Yes. And you can bring
I will never, Michael, I will be 100 years old and I'll still believe the same thing. Because guess what? How many times have the Miami Heat had a chance to pay a guy that's this transcendent, this forever, and say, guess what? Here's $62 million. Because guess what? They don't think that way. And guess what? They send off guys forever and figure it out. LeBron and then whatever. They've been successful their entire tenure as a franchise. Totally understand that. But guess what? If you have an opportunity to have Steph Curry or you don't, you pay the guy.
Yes.
Now, forever, you'll actually. By the way, if Bob Myers was still the GM, they'd have gave him an 8-year contract if they were legally binding allowed to. Okay, like it doesn't
a lifetime contract. It'd been lifetime. He said, you know what? You quit.
It's not even possible, and they would have done it.
Yes.
Just want to clarify. I did write this down. I am putting it somewhere. Also, shout out to my handwriting.
I'll tweet it at you every month. I'll tweet it at you every month until Steph Curry retires. That it was a great idea.
Go ahead and say it. Say it in 5 years. Say it in 5.
This is, by the way, the same Steph Curry that had the greatest moment of his career that wasn't in NBA Finals literally a month ago.
Absolutely. I mean, for real.
Oh, the Olympics.
Oh yeah, I don't know the biggest world stage of basketball that's not the NBA Finals. He had the 5th greatest moment of his career because he's won 4 titles, and he did that.
You know why he
had
that though?
$62 million.
Oh man,
look at the team around him.
Oh come on!
And you know what? It's not.
Look at the team around him
at
at 22, and
he's not going
to title.
He's not going to have a team around him in Golden State now.
Bron and KD were wide open, and he still shot it and made it. Bron and KD were wide open. He still shot it. He made it with 2 guys in front of him. Get out of here. Done deal.
Now.
Done deal.
Curry's going to have a great year this year.
Yes.
I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But again, let's check back, when this contract is in his final year, 26, 27, and let's just see the state of the Warriors organization. That's all I'm asking. And maybe we do put a pin in this for
they will be just fine.
2 years.
I'm sure that the Warriors would be just fine. And they have never had a player like this. Hardly any franchise has had a player like this or the opportunity to do this. And I guarantee you, if you put him on any of the other teams in the NBA, they would have done the same thing and then some. Unless you're the Brooklyn Nets, I don't know. But other than that,
That's
you
a stray.
That was a quick hit right there.
That was a stray. That was good.
That was a quick hit.
But they like Dallas, by the way. You think Dallas regrets paying Dirk the money at the end of the contract?
No.
Look they have Luka and they competed for him
Yeah.
the championship this year. Dirk retired 5 years ago, Michael.
Another once in a lifetime player.
Well, maybe it takes another 5 years for the Warriors to rebuild after Curry.
It takes another 5 years for any team to rebuild. Look at the Timberwolves for crying. It's taken the Timberwolves 20 years. I'm gonna stray. It's taken the Timberwolves 20 years to rebuild and get Anthony Edwards. You think they're gonna let Anthony Edwards walk into his contract? Are you kidding me?
No, because he'll be in his prime.
No, my point is you think the same scenario happens for Minnesota, and it's by the way, your whole thing was it's the franchise that I can't believe that, and like the timing of it, right? It's like, well, the franchise is now having to do that. Like, if there's any franchise we should trust to build a championship contender, it's probably Golden State. It's
with probably a different GM,
and the same owner who's worth $8 billion.
But
who can write any check?
Didn't you just say 20 minutes ago that Mike Dunleavy's the new GM? They haven't been focused on putting a championship contender.
Yeah, he's the GM of the Golden State Warriors, not the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yes.
My point is he's part of one of the most storied franchises in NBA history and understands that this is a really big deal to give this guy the contract. And my whole point with Edwards is one day they're not the Warriors, right? They may be one day. They might be the Warriors one day, whatever, right? They're a new franchise. I'm not picking on the Timberwolves fans, okay? Like, I'm not. But if you have an opportunity to pay Anthony Edwards at 36 years old because he's your most storied player ever, by the way, same franchise that Kevin Garnett played for, and guess what? Anthony Edwards, he wins them 4 titles. You think they're going to look him in the face and go, yeah, sorry, bud.
What have you done
for me? It's not this year. It's next. We'll pay you next year.
What have you done for me lately? They would never say that. Especially they would never do that. They would never say that. Not at all. Because it's more.
Tom Brady won a Super Bowl because of the same scenario. You pay the guy and you deal with it, and they didn't want to do it.
Medal. It was like they gave that man a medal, and look what that man has got. They were like, dude, they gave that man accolades on top of accolades, and he will probably be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time for a long time until the next person comes. But until that next person comes, you pay him.
I don't want to get into the GOAT debate right now.
I just wish I had thought about the Tom Brady thing earlier. I wish I had thought about the thing earlier. Literally, because like it's the perfect counter to everything you said in the last 15 minutes.
I'm glad.
Look at the scenario. He won a Super Bowl in the first year outside of the most tenured in the last 20 years, most storied franchise in 20 years, and most successful franchise in 20 years. I'm not saying ever because I'm not that naive. They were really bad when I was negative, whatever. They were terrible. And I wish I had went through that because it would just been so much more sweet and rewarding.
Much better.
But the point is like they literally said Tom Brady, greatest quarterback of all time, and may never change forever. And they said, hey, that's fine. If someone gives you the contract, see you later. And he won a Super Bowl, and it was the greatest middle finger in sports history. And I just sat there and I enjoyed it because guess what? We should have paid the man.
Hands down. Everybody sitting around that corner mad. They all mad at each other, throwing stuff at each other in the meeting room. Monday morning, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall. Monday morning when they came in to work and they looked and said, who was the dummy that decided to trade this man?
Well, that was Bill Belichick.
You done it. You're fired.
It was Bill Belichick. I would have hit him over the head with a newspaper.
Everybody would have pointed at Bill. And everyone would be like this. Bill done it. Everyone would have done it. And
everyone knew.
I'm in the process actually of reading. We'll be just fine without him. We'll be just fine without him.
It's in the other room. But I'm in the process of reading a book about that whole story. And
oh, really?
Oh, I'm so excited. I think I told you about this. It's a Seth Wickersham, incredible writer. He was a beat writer for Boston for 18 years. And he wrote a book called It's Better to Be Feared. And it kind of goes into like I'm in the point right now where they're kind of building up the frame. It's like a documentary that we've seen where they, these documentaries are terrible. And they like paint a picture. The Apple TV one specifically, Bill Belichick was painted like he was like the Antichrist. And literally like this book is just the perfect, like 33% of each of these guys. You're getting to actually understand why the franchise did what they did. And I can't wait till I get to the end. And I'll come on this podcast and I'll do a book review and tell Michael why Tom Brady was like, why we should pay them the contract and why I'll find a way to tie it back to Steph Curry. So I know we got to get to college football. I'm sorry.
Totally
my fault.
We'll book Trevor's book review, and maybe we can even get him to read a paragraph on air.
You don't get the pass, man. He's going to get the pass. I'm doing this interview. You ain't
What?
getting my turn. It's me. I ain't done
What?
it in weeks. It's me.
Dude, now this absolutely ruins what I was going to do for college football because I've like digged into you, Shan, for an entire month. I was about to dig into Trevor about last night, and now I gotta like butter him up now.
I'm ready.
He's ready
I'm
because there were two teams that struggled against teams they shouldn't have last night.
A lot more than two, but
college football was, on last night. We had some close games. Two games I thought should not have been as close as they were. One of them was Colorado against North Dakota State, and I was just baffled. If Colorado didn't have Travis Hunter, they probably don't win that game, period, against North Dakota State. That's bad. The second one is NC State about ruined football fans' experience in North Carolina because guys like me, who's an App State fan, would have to hear if things had went wrong last night, they would have had to hear that Western Carolina had beat NC State and was like the best football school in North Carolina, and that would have been terrible. Absolutely terrible. NC State did pull away late in the game, won by 17 points, but you don't always check the box score. NC State, with the amount of talent they had, getting Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina. Thank you for taking him away from Coastal, by the way. With Conception on the outside, like that should not have happened. This should have been absolute blowout. Trevor, I know you watched that NC State game very closely. What were your takeaways when it comes to what the Wolfpack did or didn't do last night?
Can I answer the question on the screen first?
Oh yeah, sure. For the people who aren't watching, they may be like on the road. The question on the screen, by the way, is who is most likely set up for failure, NC State or Colorado? So there you go, Trevor.
My whole thing is it's a great question, and I hope we get to it because there is literally no other argument other than Colorado. Colorado is set up for failure because of the media and because of everything that Deion Sanders says, does, and is, which I think is incredible. I think he's great for the sport. I think the way we cover him, and I think the way that we put all the expectations on all these transfers just working out is it's ludicrous. Like watching the pregame coverage of this game, they're 45 minutes out. They're interviewing him on TV. I love Mark Jones. He's an incredible broadcaster. He's been a Kings broadcaster for a really long time. ESPN's one of the better ones. And he literally could not talk about North Dakota State. Like he just could not last night. There was not a single, I had to mute it. I had to turn it off because I'm so sick of the way we talk about Colorado, and they're in the Big 12 and they're probably going to win 6 games, which by the way, making a bowl is a really big deal. In your second year after coaching at an HBCU, that's an incredible. I hope Jackson State's actually, they're in the SWAC. I think they are. Anyway, you get my point. Coaching in a conference that has no resources. I always get confused with the teams that like were an HBCU at one point, or like, you get my point. There's 361 programs in the country in basketball. So, so my point is Deion, what he's doing is nothing short of incredible. But setting up for failure is we're thinking that they're going to blow this team out. They're going to beat this team. Like the start last year, they played the runner-up national champions. By the way, they had one starter return, TCU did. So they did not beat the runner-up national champions. And we talked about them 3-0 or whatever. They didn't win another game until like October. And then last night was their first win since October of last year. So my point is like they're set up for failure. NC State-wise, my whole argument to this, and I would say this to Colorado too, because North Dakota State, same thing, every single one of these teams, guess what we don't have in college football that we have in other sports, specifically professionally? We don't have a preseason. You can only play yourself so much until you have to go out there, you play a team, and you have to personnel-wise, you have to adjust for them, you have to learn their film. Obviously, we're watching Coastal film for 3 weeks probably and getting used to understanding, who you're playing. And at the end of the day, the point is Western is a really, really good team at their level, right? They're really athletic, really fast. And at the end of the day, State's a really, really talented team. And I think there's no problem with the way they played last night because you have to get to learn yourself. There were some bad plays in there. There were some bad situations they put themselves in. But the first 2 plays of the game, they almost had 2 pick sixes for crying out loud. So we're talking about a team that had to get used to themselves. All the hype, by the way, talking about the way we talk about Colorado, the way we talk about NC State in the media as well, the way they were really talking about them on ACC Network for the last 2 months isn't good for them. It wasn't. This is the best opportunity for a team to win double-digit wins since the 70s for NC State. You're talking to somebody that really, really understands what this team is and what they're about, and they had an opportunity to go out there, and they weren't able to execute, and they learned from their mistakes. Look at the fourth quarter compared to the third quarter, and even the second when they started to figure things out a little bit at the end of the second half. In the first half, excuse me. They figured it out.
They figured it out, which prevented Western from pulling off that upset. Derek Polly, appreciate you watching, saying Adam's a Western fan. I'm sure hoping he was having the Catamats put that out. I was not in that crowd because Shannon, especially as an app guy, I would not have heard the end of it, especially the amount of times I've said, and I stand by, WCU and ECU are like the left and right armpits of North Carolina, and that's no truer than in the sports world. So this was a close call last night, Shannon.
Oh, it was, baby. But let me go ahead and answer this question right here. Let me tell you something, baby. They want to set up to where Coach Prime and Colorado don't do so well this year. We're going into the Big 12. We got a big conference that we're playing in this year. So every time I go to the bathroom, every time I say something wrong, it's going to be put and posted up by the media. But it still don't matter because Coach Prime has done so much more than anybody else in college football in the past couple of years. And there's a lot of people that don't really like that, baby. And that's all right, because what we going to do, we still going to play. We going to go out there and we still going to play. Michael Davis, I know they talking bad about us. Trevor, I know they talking bad about us. I know that you got my back, got my best interest in everything. Baby, it's going to be a tough year. I know it is. But my son Shador did a wonderful job. Travis Hunter, wonderful job, 3 touchdowns. They hooked up 3 times in the end zone. Now let's talk about that. Let's not talk about Coach Prime. Let's talk about my squad, which is something that you don't do. Every time I do something, it's always said. It's always posterized. It's always been put out there in front of the masses. But you don't talk about my squad. It's all about the kids. It's all about how they playing. Talk about these kids. Don't talk about Coach Prime. Leave Coach Prime out of it. Leave him out of there, baby. Watch my men play. We developing men out here in this program. And what's so bad about it is a lot of people don't see that. A lot of people look at win column. I get that. Look at the win column. That's fine. But look at the wins of these young men or what they're getting. I got players out there. I got stars out there. They're going to the league. They're going to play well. But all you focus on is Coach Prime. But don't worry about it, baby. We still coming. We still coming. And Travis did have the catch of the year. Wonderful catch. Man in front of him, took the eye off of the ball, still caught the ball one-handed. That's my man. He plays well. Both sides of the ball, he plays well, and he excels on. Now, my son hit him late. I know he did. My son hit him late. I know he did. He hit him late, and that was a bad hit. Bad move by my son there. That was wrong. I had to get him after that. I had to get him, baby. But don't worry about it. Colorado's still coming. Coach Prime, baby. Now get my theme music.
I can't follow that up, Trevor.
Despite it being a cosplay of Deion Sanders, there was some good stuff in there. I mean, there was. It was like he was also, it was so funny. It was like he was trying to answer it. It's like an actor that plays themselves in a movie. It's like he's trying to play himself, but he's also trying to act too. And it's like, it was interesting. I really liked it actually. But look, to be fair, they aren't that good. They really aren't. And I'm glad that, which is why I'm glad you went where you did, regardless if it was in Prime's voice and Prime's personality, is we cover them the way we cover them, and it's a problem. And by the way, I'm the one that answered the question the way that I did. I did exactly what he said. And it's like the media talks about it. Why don't we talk about the team? The question in front of me on someone else's show is who is more likely to set up for failure? And it's Colorado because of the expectation. The only answer is Colorado. I'd love to talk about the field, which is why I'm glad we talked about NC State for a moment, Michael, to answer your question, that they're going to be fine. Yes. They're going to be fine. They're going to figure it out. Now, would I like to have seen a better performance going into the second game of the season where they played number 15 Tennessee on a neutral site?
Of course.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen a better performance. Don't get me wrong. But by the way, Coastal had some really good athletes. I'm not telling you that there wasn't I know you Michael's just whatever reason not a fan of Western Carolina. I get it. But they have some really good. They have an incredible coach, by the way, who they talked about his lineage because, obviously they're winning and they're talking about all the prepared game notes. Wes Durham does a great job on the broadcast. He's an incredible. He used to be a really great quarterback in the 90s. He was I think he was a Florida offensive coordinator at one point and then head coach. And so they have an incredible team for that level of football. And no matter what, you show up, you play hard, you're going to give people a hard time. North Dakota State, like, we look at them the same way, like a different way, because they're an FCS powerhouse. And we should be giving Colorado more flack than we were. But guess what? We all watched Scott Van Pelt the other night, have a great time enjoying, talking to Prime and talking to Travis and all that stuff. And guess what? I get it. When you're interviewing the team that won as a media person, you're just not going to trash the guy. Like, that's just not how media works.
No.
But like they should have probably Division I, higher level. Like, they probably should have beaten North Dakota State by 2 touchdowns.
I thought it was going to be more. I really did. I thought it was going to be more, but it was not. They went out there and they showed out. They played very good ball. But I mean, it's just, even though Coach Prime has done some dumb stuff, like he's done some dumb stuff this year, with the only this person can interview me and that person can interview me. He's been accused of that when he was over at Jackson State. He's done it before. And now that you're at a bigger program than what you were, of course they're going to come at you harder. Of course they're going to do that. Of course they're going to see. He was one of the coaches that came in with the most to prove. He's one of those coaches that came in with the most fanfare as well, too. Because you had guys committing to go play for Coach Prime. Goldberg's son is over there. Goldberg's son, I believe, is over there. I think he is. But the fact of the matter is, you got guys over here doing that. He's pulling coaches as well, too. He's doing that. And so the fanfare is there. But at the end of the day, you got to manufacture wins. And that's something that everybody is looking to see. And Deion Sanders knows that. Yeah. So still, he's going to have to answer that question. Can he do it?
And here's the thing is, like, and honestly, I would agree with Trevor on the most likely set for failure is Colorado.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, especially when you look at records, Colorado, I believe, has a tougher schedule.
They're in the Big
12 versus the ACC right now, especially since UNC just lost their quarterback. I mean, obviously, you got Clemson, but beyond that, it's like, okay, you're going to play Wake Forest. And Wake Forest didn't even do that great. Like, I'm an ACC guy. I love the ACC, especially basketball. But yeah, like, I don't think NC State has that tough of a schedule. NC State also ranked this year to start out the year. Colorado was not. But in Prime's defense, he gutted that entire roster last year and tried to gel everybody immediately.
That was his choice.
Yeah, that was his choice.
That was
but it's still not easy.
Naive here.
Yeah. But it's still not easy. And then to have this year, like, there's still a lot of talent on this Colorado team. You got both the Sanders boys. You got Jimmy Horn. You got Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter
is a beast.
Oh my goodness!
I mean,
Max said Travis catch of the year yesterday. When you're reaching behind a defensive player's back to catch a touchdown, I was like, that was insane.
And for his hands to be the thing that did it too, it wasn't like you're supposed to catch with your body, you're supposed to catch them, deep into your body, and he caught him with his fingers basically. I was like, okay, that's incredible.
Like he's fantastic. So there is talent on both teams. Who's more set up for failure? Colorado is, especially after how last year went. I'm interested to see how NC State does with Coastal's quarterback Grayson McCall.
So to answer that, I'm glad you said that, because McCall was one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's 3-time Sun Belt Player of the Year. And we want to sit here and give him so much flack for no preseason. That's not I'm not making excuses for the guy, but there's so many people that went out last night and didn't look great. I hate to do this, but Carolina probably should have been a lot better than Minnesota, and they probably should have won that game by more.
Yes.
100%. And I'm not picking on Carolina. I'm using them as an ACC opponent that played a better team than Western Carolina. They probably should have still probably won that game by a lot more, regardless of the quarterback. And so the point I'm making is McCall, you're going to have, it's a new offense, albeit, right? New coordinator for him. He had 3 coaches, offensive coordinators in 4 years. So got to give the guy some slack. It's the first game. Now, if he does that against Tennessee, it's like crap, I'm going to be really disappointed. However, he's probably going to turn out to be one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC. And we're going to look back and go, are we going to really sit here and be like, well, that Western game? No, not really. He threw 3 touchdowns to KC Concepcion. That didn't even get any of the other receivers involved. And they have an incredible receiving core. Jolly was incredible last night too. I'm really, really excited to see him. I hope he stays healthy because that'll really, really open up. They like to do the 11 or 12 personnel where they have 2 tight ends in there, but they also have that little seam route that they got a couple times with Jolly. Got him really deep into the red zone, and they continue to do that. They're going to be fine. They just got a lot to work on. Now, is Dave Doran pissed off, and understandably so? Absolutely. He should have those guys running sprints tomorrow. Hopefully give them the day off today, run sprints tomorrow. And, you're playing Tennessee in 6 days, guys. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And so 8 days, whatever it was. And so my point is should they be frustrated with themselves? Absolutely. Were there stupid, sloppy turnovers? Absolutely. Was there things that they could still, even in the first half when there was mistakes being made, was there still things that they can look at and say we were proud of? Absolutely. Did they scheme and not take Western Carolina a little bit less seriously? I think a little bit because the offensive line was getting bullied around. So anyway, my long-winded point is NC State's going to be fine. I'm still optimistic. If they do this against Tennessee, I'm still optimistic. If they do this against X, Y, and Z opponent week 3, 4, 5, then I'm starting to look like every other year, and then I'm going to be upset.
Now, I will say this. I just looked at the time, which is fantastic. Usually we've been scripting this as a 30-minute show, but it looks like we're going to eventually have to go to an hour some days with Out of Pocket. We'll talk to the team, see what we're doing, but we'll finish up here in the last couple of minutes. Just asking these guys, we're bringing that aged well back because sports are back. It's sports Christmas, right? I'm gonna ask you guys who wins tomorrow, Clemson Tigers or Georgia Bulldogs, and I'm gonna add the kicker. What's the score? What's the point differential? Trevor, you want to go first?
I want to pull up the spread really quick just to see. Because that will play into my thought process a little bit. So Georgia, Clemson. By the way, I'm going with Georgia. Let me just be abundantly clear. Let's not sugarcoat that. I'm going with Georgia. They're the best team in the country. Arguably, I think Ohio State has a really good argument in that case, and super excited to watch them play this year in person for the first time. And so Clemson's a double-digit underdog, 11.5. I was making sure I got that number right. Do I think Clemson can keep it to 2 touchdowns? Probably not. I think Georgia probably wins by 21.
I think Georgia wins by 21. Max saying 31, if I did my math right on that, 45-14. Shan, what's your pick?
The reason why I'm picking Georgia is because, of course, let's address it. Georgia's the number 1 team in the nation, more than likely going for that national championship this year, the way their defense is and the way they manufacture points. But the reason why I'm going to get Clemson as well, too, is because Clemson's got that class action lawsuit talking about the ACC doing all this dumb stuff, and Clemson hasn't done anything in the past few years, and they're thinking they're holding the ACC up. No, you're not, sir. You and Florida State can go and leave and not say goodbye at all because you're getting destroyed by Georgia. And I'm going to say 28 points is what you're going to get, Mr. We hold the ACC up in football. I get it. You've won championships. I understand that. But that was yesteryear, and I had less gray in my beard when you won a championship, so I don't want to hear it.
I will say the one argument for Clemson really quick. I know we're hitting the hour mark, but the one argument for Clemson is their defense is really good. I'm not the college football national guy that's going to sit here and argue the third stringer of Georgia versus I'm just not. That's not me. Know who you are, right? And so but Clemson's defense is improved. It's going to be their biggest strength, which is also why I'm not as scared about that game this year for NC State. A little quick nugget there. And then at the end of the day, Cade Klubnik, if he can get hot early, that's like the one thing about him last year that I really didn't like was if he didn't get into rhythm early, that was when they really struggled. And so if he can get into rhythm early and kind of almost put Georgia on their heels, which again, this is Georgia we're talking about. It's basically like, whoever I don't know, I'm trying to think of the best team in the NFL last year. It's like the Chiefs. They're basically just whatever, back on our heels, who cares, whatever, right? And so Georgia, they're going to be able to come back and punch, and this is probably more of a test to see how Clemson does. Even if they lose by 21 or 28, this is more of a test to see what we think about Clemson than it is about Georgia, because Georgia has to play in the SEC, and they have to play the most bloodbath. They play I think they play at Ole Miss this year. They're at Alabama. They're at one more team. I can't think of who it is now. I think it's at Missouri. And so all of these are top 25 teams. And so it's like, okay, we're going to learn about Georgia sooner rather than later. I'm not going to learn as much. And Clemson, I think if they can fight and they can keep this game close, even into the fourth quarter, despite a loss, I think we learned a lot about Clemson this week, especially in the fourth quarter.
Mhm.
I mean, Clemson's got a schedule here the next 3 weeks. You got Georgia this Saturday, you got App State next Saturday, and then you got NC State the following week. 3 games that you will want to watch. Even Stanford after that. Like, let's not just blow by Stanford. But number 1 team Georgia, you got App State, who always shows up against the big schools, and then you have NC State, who will probably, be gelling at that point, especially with Grayson McCall. So Clemson's got a tough schedule here coming up too. So let's not look past that. There's always this curse, right, when it comes to everybody picking the same team and then that team, falling short of expectations. So now I have the difficult task of, do I go against the grain and say Clemson and look like an idiot on Monday when we're back on Out of Pocket right here on Boom Broadcasting, or do I just go with the mold and go Georgia? I don't want to look out like an idiot after Brand Aiyuk. So give me Georgia, but give me a 13-point victory for the Georgia Bulldogs. Again, there's no preseason in college football. Both teams are going to show up, but it's only going to be by 13 points that Georgia pulls it out. As I mentioned, Out of Pocket will be back this Monday on the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel. What you can expect from us this weekend is the nightcap is tonight for WWE SmackDown Mouth Off with Mike hosts that. We got the day cap special for Bash in Berlin tomorrow. I believe podcast _ Smitty might make an appearance. You never know who else will be on these nightcaps / day caps. And then NXT No Mercy on Sunday. Like, we're having to pay Mouth Off with Mike overtime. And all that money is coming from a swear jar, of course, because that's the only way we're making money right now. So it can be done. Out of Pocket will be back on Monday, or maybe not. Who knows? Stay tuned to the social media. I know it's Labor Day. We'll see if we can get a panel going, and we'll see if we want to talk sports after the weekend, which I believe we will. But for Michael Davis, Trevor Everette from 2 Points Podcast, go follow his YouTube channel. If you haven't seen me and Shan go toe-to-toe in the trivia showdown yet, there it is on demand, available on his YouTube channel. And then if you haven't seen Quick Hits with podcast _ Smitty from Wednesday, that's available on the Boom Broadcasting YouTube channel as well. But for all of us, thank you guys so much for spending your Friday evening with us. We got to get out of here. Trevor sending the love, and we'll see you back here on Out of Pocket for Monday.